There's Mickey. Mickey 17. It's Bong Joon-ho's latest movie since his big Oscar-winning Parasite, an all-time banger, an all-time bonger from Bong Joon-ho. This one's going back to more of his broader sci-fi satires, in the vein of Snowpiercer, Okja. But I think this is probably my favorite of his English language movies. It just comes together, for the most part, really well. If you don't know, it's about this guy, Mickey, who signs up to become an expendable for this expedition to an ice planet world. It's pretty clear anti-capitalist sci-fi satire, something that Bong Joon-ho is adept at this point. He represents the lowly worker, right? Perhaps equivalent to the expendables of today. Food delivery worker, a packager at an Amazon warehouse, maybe more so a miner collecting hazardous materials to be used in the manufacturing of cell phones worldwide. The people capitalism exploits to the very bone, and extracts all their value without a care for their well-being. Of course, it's sci-fi, it's turned up to 100. In this case, Mickey here gets reprinted every time he dies. So they set him out to do a bunch of dangerous stuff. He dies. That's some good research for the team. For the Mark Ruffalo character, who you could equate to most any fascist leader, he's pretty heightened, but overall it kind of works with the tone of the movie. I didn't mind it too much. I think they work better than in some of Bong Joon's other films, like Okja and Snowpiercer, whose villains were even, I feel, more cartoony, more a bit just disjointed from the world that he was presenting. But the main draw is Robert Pattinson's performance. This is top tier Pattinson here. It's really fun to watch. I don't really want to get into the big hook of the movie. You can probably see it coming, as you're watching. But it's still nice to have it be revealed as you watch it, right? Though if you've seen the trailers, you'll know where this film is going. I'd seen like a teaser or something a while ago, but I had forgotten a lot of it, and I intentionally didn't rewatch it before sitting at the theater because I wanted to go in as fresh as possible. And so I had forgotten the little twist that comes along. So it was nice to get, to be like, oh wait, I think I know where this is going. And then I'm like, oh wait, was this revealed in the trailer? And then, yeah, it turns out, I'll talk about in spoilers, what Mickey discovers in this scene here. The filmmaking in general is just really great. It's great editing, great pacing. There was never really a dull moment. Perhaps at the end, it kind of lost a little bit of its steam, a little bit of its focus. This is the kind of like fun, big budget sci-fi that we rarely see. And surprisingly also, the romance in there was a big part of the movie. Yeah, the romance was nice. I didn't expect it to be such a central part of the story. There was elements of like two female characters fawning for the lead that felt a little bit regressive at times. I think that was mostly due to a certain character not being as fleshed out as they could have been. And that could just be a factor of just a translation from book to film, because this is an adaptation. Though overall, it's a pretty good adaptation in that it felt really snappy. For the most part, it didn't feel like it was being constricted due to the medium. I don't know how close it is to the book, because I haven't read the book, but the narrative, at a certain point, played out almost in real time as well. So that helped a lot with the pacing and just the exhilarating nature of it. It gets pretty cynical at times, especially the beginning. It does focus a lot on existentialism, the human condition as one is exploited. We got a fascist leader at the top who's an amalgamation of a CEO and an evangelical politician. And then Toni Collette plays a good role as his wife, who's just as demented. Steven Yeun plays a good, skeevy, looking out for himself douche of a character. And Naomi Ackie, too, is great. She's almost kind of like a co-lead in the movie. It's the kind of sci-fi action movie I would imagine you'd hope to see when you step into a theater. There's love, there's some silliness, there's some tense moments. Bong Joon-ho is not going for another Oscar here, but I liked the movie. It was fun. I gave it a like. I gave it 4 out of 5 on my Letterboxd. Check that out. So let's go into the spoilers now. Spoilers. Spoiler section. We're in spoilers. All right, so just a few things I want to address. The reveal that Mickey had a duplicate, right, was pretty cool. It was nice. It made sense. It was expected. But Pattinson is just amazing. Like, he really differentiates between the two. They seem like different people. But that's the thing, right? Like, it came a little bit of a surprise because how different he was. Because I don't think the film quite did a good job of showing how distinct each Mickey was until that point. You know, at that point, I think he narrates and just says, "Oh yeah, like we have different personalities, blah blah blah," and which is a cool idea. You know, I just kind of wish that they showed a little bit more of that beforehand. Like right here, he didn't seem too different from Mickey 17. It felt like a natural progression from him to becoming Mickey 17. Maybe if I go back to it, I'll notice more differences. But it was a pretty stark contrast between 18 and 17, right? So it felt a little jarring. It could have been eased a bit if we had seen maybe a little more of the other Mickeys. Again, that's a little minor thing. Another quibble would be with the character of Kai, played by Anna Maria Bortolome. She felt underwritten to me, as if they had to condense her character. It did come off as a little bit regressive, particularly because for a large portion of the movie, she's just seen as kind of like just another woman for Mickey to romance, a secondary love interest to have that catty battle, that contention with Nasha, Naomi Aki's character. You know, there was even that scene where they were kind of fighting over how they can share Mickey, and so it felt a little bit of a male fantasy there. Luckily, both Nasha and Kai were expanded upon a little more than that. It's particularly with Nasha, who had a full arc, and I think overall her storyline really was satisfying for me. But again, Kai felt a little bit superfluous. Like, the dinner scene was really good. I think they wanted that scene to showcase more of her character there and to show how she cared for Mickey. She could have just easily been a friend to Mickey and not be a character that's in opposition with Nasha, especially because she had other romantic partners, though that was also kind of like in the background. I just feel like the subplot with her attraction to Mickey was a bit unnecessary because of that, because she already had these other partners, and they could have expanded her lesbian relationships with those other characters a little more. You know, although it was nice to see bisexual representation, it still felt like more like serving the Mickey character. And she was getting the finger here to Naomi Aki's character, right, Nasha. This wasn't like a totally serious fuck you, but it still played out in that regressive manner of like, oh, like, you know, two women at odds because of the male character in between. And maybe if the whole movie was more focused on the love triangle, which becomes a quadrangle, otherwise known as a square, you know, once Mickey becomes two Mickeys, maybe why not a pentagon? Put Steven Yeun in there as well. Then it would have worked a little better. It's hard to mush everything in here, and this is a very packed movie with a lot of stuff going on, you know, and so that's the reason why I feel like they could have just easily, you know, excised this little subplot and just have her be a friend, you know. That scene under the stairs felt like the exact scene the Bechdel test is designed to call out. It wasn't like the biggest thing, like I said. But perhaps the biggest issue with the movie is its ending. It felt like it lost its focus. I think for me, particularly the very ending when they're celebrating. There's like a dream sequence. The Marshal gets reprinted again, and Toni Collette's character Eva tells him to like lick that sauce off the floor, and she's all about her sauces, which I thought it was a fun little quirk of hers about into sauces, which to me, of course, represented how the out-of-touch wealthy capitalists in general, they like to cover up all the atrocities, you know, they're complicit in with a nice sauce, maybe with some nice words. Maybe they're lying to themselves. You know, they believe they deserve the value produced by others because they feel like they're good leaders or whatever. To a fascist or a fascistic enabler, when they see a genocide they're responsible for, complicit in, it might leave a bad taste in their mouth, you know? But luckily they have the resources and the privilege to coat it over with a nice sauce. A sauce so good, you don't even taste what's underneath. You know, a sauce that to you may say, oh, death is justified because those people were going to grow up to be terrorists or something. Sauce thing worked for me, but that dream sequence didn't feel quite necessary. Like, it felt kind of like almost like a tease to a sequel, or it felt like another genre convention of like at the end of a horror movie, the villain came back to life. Freddy's coming back. Hitler will return. And, you know, of course, it's played out like a dream sequence. So, you know, it's kind of just like in his head. And I get the idea of like, oh yeah, it's representative, I guess, of the fact that like, oh, like we got to stay vigilant, you know, another villain can rise. But I feel like they could have used that moment instead to elaborate on the future of maybe a solution or some ideas about how they can move forward after taking the evil dictator out, the big boss out, the election process of having Naomi Aki's character Nasha become the next leader or one of the leaders. I'm not sure if there's like a council of leaders, but it felt like, you know, it was a quick rundown of now democracy is working properly now, but it seemed very similar to what it was like before, except with just a different leader at the top. You know, it would have been a perfect opportunity to explore how they would go about creating a more cooperative society. They did eliminate the Expendables program in that cloning machine. That was the extent of it, right? There was no mention of the restructuring of the system as a whole, the hierarchy. You know, it felt like a parliamentary democracy at the end there. It just hints at this brighter future. It would have been nice to, you know, to, instead of having that dream sequence, focus more on this paradigm shift and how this new colony will move forward in a way that will prevent a leader such as Marshall to rise again. That would have elevated the story beyond just a fun time satire. On the one hand, it does end on a positive note, you know, one in which anyone could extrapolate, you know, what the future would look like. It's designed to be appealing to a lot of people. It also feels a bit stunted like other big budget Hollywood movies. Perhaps that's why it was able to be made, because it allows for more standard status quo readings that advocate for quote unquote good leaders. And major systemic change is not necessary as long as the people up top aren't evil Hitlers or something. But it does kind of align with a lot of other Bong Joon-ho's, you know, sci-fi works that have that broader appeal, while still having some biting commentary that, you know, isn't so subtle throughout the narrative. I guess it's just at this point with a lot of mainstream art challenging the status quo a little more, having these anti-capitalist themes, I am wanting it to go further, you know, to push the limits a little more, actually show us the benefits of a socialistic, communistic society, and not just hint at it. This is still a big studio film, although I don't know how financially successful this is going to be. You know, it's definitely a bit odder and more biting with its politics than the majority of big budget movies. It also has a lot of elements of a crowd pleaser. Still feels like something that could get a lot of attention and viewership. Maybe this will have some long legs. I hope so. But it'd be great if this makes a pretty penny at the box office, because it's definitely the kind of Hollywood movie I want to see more of. It also has some really good creatures. They're so adorable. They make for good plushies. Have you seen Bong Joon-ho cuddle a little plushie of these creepers? Bong Joon-ho is delightful. We need more. In this Colbert interview, he even joked about replicating himself. You know, so he can have multiples of himself around, you know. Imagine if we got a Bong Joon-ho movie every year. Anyway, that's Mickey 17. So that's gonna do it for now. Check out the Patreon for the full unedited version of this video and some extra content. Until next time, I'll be here under the moonlight. Bye bye.